Mandy she's a writer, and she is a minister, and she has mysterious hands in front of her. And she's a mom, she's a studier of the word, and she's a friend, and I feel like a co-laborer in Christ. So first, some people think that you and I have only just met, but we haven't just met.
No.
We knew each other for a little while before you all moved to this area.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are called to be not only disciples, but to be discipled. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking a class right now. I don't know if you saw that, but I interviewed last Monday Apostle Gardner, and he's doing a class, and I joined it. And last week he talked about discipleship, and he gave this definition for disciples. Let me see if I can find it. Disciples aren't just converts, but doers, learners, students, Christ followers, basically apprentices of Jesus. And that he said that Christian was noted 3 times in the Bible, and the word disciple over 200 times.
Wow.
In the Bible. You know the last one-day conference we had? Mm-hmm. I sent out this blast email to people. I have an email list, that goes out. And someone that's in deliverance ministry was on that list. And so I sent out a list saying, not that I expected them to come, but just letting them know. And it's a woman who's well-known in deliverance circles. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is a deliverance conference we're having. Even if you can't come, I'd appreciate prayer. I'd appreciate, any time you can give to this. And you know what she sent back to me? As you know, I am a deliverance minister, and I have no need for a deliverance conference.
Oh, wow.
She said that. And I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Then I removed her from my email, but I also removed myself from her email because anybody who is not a current disciple of Jesus, who can't possibly learn, she may not have learned anything from the conference, but the attitude behind it, I don't want to receive that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to continually learn to stay out of error. Now, if you have my book on the spirit of error, actually, Mandy has a chapter in there that she wrote. We didn't hide your name, I don't think. Am I letting it?
Yeah, no.
So sometimes we hide those names, but she wrote something awesome in there. So I think, is it toward the back of the book?
Mm-hmm, it's in the back, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll want to read that, and you can read part of her story and part of her heart. So not only are we supposed to raise up not converts, but disciples, but we should also be a disciple. And in that process of, if you're a believer, you should be not only learning, but you also should be teaching what you learn. And that's one thing I do. When I learn a new method or I learn some new scripture that's alive in me, the first thing I'll do is go teach it. Mm-hmm. Because if I know it enough to teach it, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
I think parents going through deliverance or learning how to forgive, if they will take that training, make it on a child level and begin teaching their children.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I know that you have talked to some of your children about easy disciple. We disciple our kids as well as other people about forgiveness and that kind of thing. How have you taught your children about the principles that you've learned in following Christ?
I kind of take it I don't know, it's really when the Holy Ghost brings it up. Sometimes when I'm in the middle of learning something, I recognized a lie that I had believed that I had heard as a child. And as I was telling my children about this, the Lord brought to mind something that I had spoken over my son.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And I looked at him and I said his name. I said, Mama told you this. And I said, that was a lie. And I said, we're going to break that right now. I said, I am so sorry that I spoke this lie over you. And I asked him if it was okay if we prayed and renounced this lie. And he said, yeah, it was okay. So I walked him through that, like you said, on a child's level. And I watched his body relax, his face start to glow. And that was a really cool moment because as I'm learning, I'm also able to teach my children and to break off some of the things that I spoke in ignorance over them while they're still children. So it's not something that they have to carry their entire life.
It reminds me of something. I don't really want to tell it, but I like to be transparent because I would love for people to learn the easy way. I learned a lot of things the hard way. And so if I can tell you how I did it the hard way, maybe you'll learn it. And so as you're saying that, when I wasn't somebody who called my children names or anything, but before God dealt with me about being a screamer and yeller and impatient, I mean, I didn't have the fruit of the Spirit. I had to pray that in, and I had to get deliverance and all those things to become a decent mom. And I remember we had a guest in our house, which should not have happened in front of a guest. But I screamed at one of my children, "You are a liar." It was in anger. And I saw his countenance fall. But when you're angry, you don't care. I didn't care. And that other kid looked put out. I was like, "Why are you being put out with a liar?" I didn't care. I was angry. I was acting stupid. That kid went home and told their parent, and their parent was like, she, called him a liar. And I don't remember. It was all totally my fault. But once the Lord began dealing with me, I forgot that I'd even done that. And so I realized, because God was teaching me how to be free, sitting down and just saying, "I remember when I called you this in front of somebody." So it didn't matter whether it's true or not. I don't know if it was, but humiliation, which started to breed bitterness toward me, toward authority, embarrassment, all of those things. And so I purposely, we can assume our kids forgive, but you best not assume that. Because the bitterness, that breeding ground breeds quickly and the older that they get. And then later on you have behaviors and you don't know why. I'm a good parent, I'm providing all these things. Yeah, but you sowed something bad. And so I went to retrieve the seed. And so I said, I would like, that is not, I did like you. I reversed it. That is not true. That's not your identity. That is not who you are. Would you forgive me for that? And sometimes it's hard for kids, especially when they have harbored that. They believe what you say. They believe the identity that you speak into them. And it changed. It changed him after that. And I learned a lesson not to do it.
To be able to walk them through, this is who you are, this is your identity, this is who God created you to be. That's been really key in me and my journey to learn who God really created me to be. And to also speak that over my children, to go, to start asking the Lord, like, who are they really? Who did you create them to be? And then to speak that over them. That also, I did that in that moment.
That is perfect. I learned that one the hard way. So have you seen changes in your family as you have grown and you have been teaching and training?
Yeah, I have. And I can tell, like, especially for our older ones, they had more years under me as a mom that was not set free. I can tell that there's more that the Lord's going to have to undo. But it's been really, really neat to watch just how God is transforming our family, changing our family's story, where we would have ended up. Because as it was before I started getting set free, I probably would have I would have continued the cycles, the generational cycles. And so to be able to watch that stop with my children, it's been really, really beautiful to watch what God does. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And we can get stuck in our parental mistakes and get focused on ourselves, which doesn't help the kids at all.
Yeah, you were the one who told me that, actually.
Did I tell you the story about the woman who told me about asking Jesus to redeem?
Yes.
I knew I'd had. I tell that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard it, Jesus is the Redeemer. Any mistakes you've made, if you try to redeem it, you are in idolatry. Idolatry. He's the only Redeemer. So you can actually pray, Lord, redeem this mistake, redeem this. And he can, and he will.
Yeah.
And he can even cause the children not even to be a thing, you know. So let's talk about you, Mandy. Let's talk about because you are so transparent about some of the things. Give me maybe a lie or two that you believed, because you have become really big on finding out the truth, declaring the truth over you, no matter what. I mean, you helped me write in the error. If you want to stay out of error, then love the truth. So give me an example of God. It doesn't even have to be an embarrassing lie, but just something that you believed and didn't know it was a lie, and then how God used that to transform your thinking, right, and your family, if you want to.
Probably the earliest one that I can remember that always comes to my mind, just because it was something I believed pretty much, almost to my earliest memories, is as a child, I would wonder why I was born. Why was I here? Like, I would just sit and I was like, why am I here? Why am I on earth? And I was probably 5 or 6. I decided that the reason that God created me was to make people's lives miserable. I believe that with all of my heart. I did. People laugh when I tell them that. I'm like,
A 5-year-old can make an inner vow. They can believe a lie. That's absolutely a seed of the enemy.
Yeah.
I believe you.
yeah, and they'll laugh at me, and I'm like, no, I really believe this. I'm not kidding. And so, I had that, through all my childhood, my teenage years, and that affected, all relationships. Because if you go through life believing that you're here to make people miserable, it doesn't really doesn't make for good relationships. And even through my 20s, I still.
Did you want to protect people from you?
Yes. I really like. When my husband asked me to marry him, I felt really guilty for saying yes, because I felt like I was just going to ruin his life. And I felt bad that I didn't love him enough to protect him from me. I felt guilty that my children were born to me, because I just automatically assumed that none of them were going to turn out because they were mine. And I was going to make their lives miserable. I felt sorry for anybody that was friends with me, because, again, I was going to ruin their life. Anybody that I tried to love, I felt like I ended up just completely ruining their life. Like, it just followed me throughout my whole life.
And that one thought came from a 5-year-old.
Yes.
So it wasn't a 20-year-old decision.
Yeah.
It was a 5-year-old decision.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how did you get to the root of that? You didn't know that, or did you? The reason you were trying to protect people from you, did you know it was from the 5-year-old thing?
No, I just more processed it through, I always do this. This always happens. Why does this always happen? I'm trying to think like when I actually realized that was the lie. Just probably within the last year or two. Yeah, it's been something that has kind of, is this a thing where it breaks in layers?
Okay.
Like it breaks, like that lie was broken, but I find it in different, like I had to break that lie with my husband. God broke that lie for me through not this past deliverance conference, but the one before. I started to realize God's love for me, how much he loved me. And I was like, we were here for 3 days, and every single day that I was at church or at the conference, I knew that God himself was ministering to me and telling me truth through people. Like you had prayed over me and you said something about, you called me a gentle soul, and I was just dumbfounded. I was like, wait, me? I'm not gentle. Like, what is she talking about?
She's so gentle. It was amazing that you couldn't see it.
I was
But that
like,
lie had been activated.
yes. And so God just downloaded so much truth that weekend. Like, and I realized I was gentle, and we got to the hotel and I just looked at my husband. I was like, I don't feel guilty for marrying you anymore. And I was like, I'm a good wife to you. That was just a dumbfounding thought to me. Like I started to realize, so that lie broke on that front of my marriage, that I wasn't ruining Merle's life. With relationships with other women, that was also broken. And it's kind of been like a process of breaking, as far as like women relationships, with my children, I had to intentionally break that. Like, I rebuked the lie that my children were not going to turn out because they're mine. I repented of believing it, and I spoke the truth that that God gave my children to me for a reason.
So interesting. So you have the root lie that you just make people miserable, and out of that grew a lie about your husband, a lie about. So even though the root lie was broken, God began to take the branch lies that came from it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And like also, with my parents, like I didn't ruin their lives, like because that was the main one that I believed was that I was there to just like mess up life for my parents. That's what I believed as a child. So yeah, he's kind of broken all of those branches off for me. So
wow, and I'm assuming that is having that broken off has affected your family life, your marriage.
Yes, because as long as I believe, like the more I learn about identity, the more I don't know, like I find it really intriguing. The more I find it really interesting to watch it play out in my own life. So as long as I believed that my children weren't going to turn out because they're mine, it took the fight out of me as their mom. It took hope out of me, because if I already believed the lie that they're not going to turn out just because they were born to you, then I really had no ground, no base level to fight for them on a spiritual level. Because why would I bother? The hope was gone. Why would I bother? Because I already know that they're not going to turn out, so why would I fight for them on a spiritual level? So yeah, that once God broke that lie for me there, it rose up the mama bear in me. And I started declaring truth and declaring war, like just coming at the enemy like, you will not have my children. They are not going to not turn out just because they're mine. They will turn out. They will love the Lord with all their heart. And
they are mine.
Because they are mine. And I am going to fight for them. And you are going to pay for the lies that I have believed. You have stolen so much of my life, so many years from me, and you are going to pay. So yeah, it's really changed who you think you are. Changes the way you live your life. If you think that you are this worthless wife, this woman that's gonna just create heartache for your husband, it's gonna affect that relationship as well.
It's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and then the lies just it just kind of keeps compounding on top of each other, because if you see the proof, it feels so real, and it starts to just root deeper and deeper and deeper as long as you believe that lie.
Wow, that is so good. That's worth the whole thing. We can't see if you're commenting or watching, but you can just put in the comments, wow. And I love that she's so gentle, but then when she's telling the enemy he's going to pay, you're still doing it gentle, but I'm like, oh, I bet he's shaking in his boots.
Yeah, no, I'm not gentle with him. I get very brutal with him. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love kicking him.
I do too. He's got a lot to pay for it. Another thing is, what he did to 5-year-old you was try to insert his identity. He's the destroyer. He's makes everything miserable. He inserted his identity in and then began to try to confirm it. Every bad thing that happened. Oh yeah, it's because this is the way you are.
Yes, exactly.
And now the Lord's identity has been transferred to you, which they can't coexist together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't y'all love Mandy? I do. Okay. Well, I would love to ask her some more questions, but I'm not going to. But I want to do this with you again. Super fun and such wisdom and goodness. Thanks for coming, Mandy.
You're welcome.
It was so good. See y'all later.
See ya.